Cream. Brian, I love you.
Welcome to Silicon Valley Impact, where innovation meets startup technology and insight. And now, your hosts, Brian Sparks and Lisa Helfrich.
Yes, let's hear it for our audience. Oh, that's amazing. All right. Mom, sit down. Okay, thank you. Thanks. All right, welcome to Silicon Valley Impact on Pirate Cat Radio, KPCR 92.9 FM in Los Gatos and beyond. What you're about to hear is edited for radio. I'm your host, Brian Sparks, and this on your screen and coming through your ears is my co-host, Lisa Helfrich. Lisa, hello. Good to see you.
Hello, Brian.
Glad you're back.
How's it going?
I know, it's good to see you. All right, so let's say this. The purpose of this show is to have honest conversations about what it takes to build great businesses and communities so that you can make an impact within your own. Again, Lisa, we missed you last week. I'm glad you're back. My anchor, my rock.
I was worried about you, not gonna lie.
I know. I love hyping you up because, yes, having you here is amazing. And, of course, Brian in the controls, the voice of God. Brian, good to see you.
Good evening, Brian. Good evening, Lisa. And when I say evening, I mean afternoon. It's nice to be here.
Yes. Brian, B squared. There are two Brians coming at you, so don't get confused. Stay close to the radio. Today we have a great show, but before we get to it, Lisa, you were working on some things last week with the Founders Lab. Tell us a little bit about what's going on up in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm working with Movement 51, which is a not-for-profit that develops really incredible programs for female founders across Canada. And so we kicked off our cohort for this year. It's 20 amazing founders from across Canada. They're going to be learning everything over the next 8 weeks on governance, human capital, fundraising, term sheets, how to create a compelling pitch. And the fun part is during the demo event in June, the winner is going to be on our show sometime in June. So we'll come full circle and can't wait for this audience to see what Canada's made of.
All right. And everything that you just shared, what that means, the term sheets, due diligence. We have two great guests today, as well as a great startup. They'll unpack what that looks like. We have Zamir Zukov. He is a Vibranium VC. The general man, am I getting that? The general manager?
The general partner.
The general partner. So he's the big guy. He's going to unpack what is required for funding. But before we get to that, Lisa, last week I got to tell you all about Startup Grind.
Yeah.
It was powerful, and it was. I brought it home with me, if I can say that. We have Eddie here with us. He is with Podspace, so he's going to be talking a little bit about his startup out of Paris. So we have a startup from Paris today. So Eddie, I know you're in the background. Say hi.
Hi, thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, we're going to get him on the mic in a minute. So, but before we get there, let's dive right into our guest, Lisa, today, because we're going to have fun. We're going to do it a little bit different today. Usually we do one lead guest, which is someone who has got great insight. Then we have the startup, and then we have a small business come in. But right now we have Daniel and Zamir, and we're going to go just back and forth on due diligence, the founder's mindset. We're going to talk about what it is required to be fundable. We're just gonna go wild west, right, Zamir? Good to see you, buddy. Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience, and they can get to know you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian, Lisa. Good to be here. My name is Zamir Shukho, and I'm the general partner of Vibranium VC, and we invest in early stage companies here in Silicon Valley. But we really love seeing the diversity that happens here. And I was there at Startup Grind too, a lot of great founders and companies. And we specifically like the immigrant founders, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And let me pass the mic to Daniel.
Yeah. So Daniel is in the house. Daniel, go ahead and introduce yourself and let them know a little bit about what you do and who you are.
Sure. Daniel Kozlov, serial entrepreneur. Pretty much started building startups right out of college, even though back then everyone told me I was kind of crazy. It should be getting a consulting job or investment banking job. Ended up building startups, ended up failing a bunch of times, succeeding a couple of times, but in the process, built a couple of companies that actually helped other startups too. So it's like,
and you're still doing that work because you're helping Zamir right now, and you're helping the community. And we're going to talk a little bit about the AI you're working with. Yep. You're also an angel investor, so we're going to get your perspective on what's fundable for companies that are looking to raise at this point. But let's dive into it. So Zamir, you talked a little bit about due diligence process. We'll get to that in a second. But our guests are not only guests today, Eddie, but a lot of the startups throughout Silicon Valley and the world want to know what VCs are looking for their startup. So what are some high level things that we could talk about to give them some insights?
Yeah, so past couple of years were pretty difficult for everybody. It was a big slowdown in terms of the amount of deals that was happening, the amount of money that was coming into the VC and the startup world. But we are focusing on early stage companies. So a lot of things that we look for, they don't really have the data around it. So we have to really, chime in and check out who the founder is, what the team is about, what kind of problem they're tackling. A lot of times they don't have sufficient market research. So we kind of have to look out and say, okay, do we really believe that this market is big enough and this problem is large and, millions of people have it potentially. So there are things that when we look at these startups and these companies, we have to help founders and educate them a little bit, maybe do like advisory work throughout the due diligence process in order to help them be more investable.
You do something really unique. So I didn't really want to go here. I want to circle back to a lot of things that you're talking about. And Lisa, I want you to chime in this anytime. But you do the soft landing. You're really of the mindset to educate those you're going to be invested in. Some VCs don't provide this. They expect the startup to come to them fully prepared, have the team ready to go, but you are of the mindset of educating them and advising and coaching. Walk me through that decision to be that advisor as well as a partner.
So I was a serial entrepreneur myself before starting my own fund. So I always, look out for the founders. And we saw a lot of struggle for people who wanted to come and relocate to the United States, and they did not really understand how this market operates. They heard about Silicon Valley, they wanted to be here, but there was a lot of gates they couldn't go through. So we created the soft landing program where we basically walk them through the very beginning of how do you create your entity, how do you get the work visa connected to that entity, and then all the way through how do you fundraise with local investors here in Silicon Valley. Because as I mentioned, we do love immigrant founders. We see a lot of potential in people coming from a different country, different culture, different background. They add a lot of value to the US economy when they come here. So we're very fond of those teams, but we saw a big gap that did not exist in the market. Majority of accelerators that exist here in Silicon Valley and early stage funds, as you mentioned, they want these companies to be pretty much ready for the US market. When those companies achieve some kind of local traction in their original country, let's take France, for example, there is still a gap in between the way things are done in France and the way they raise money there and what is acceptable and looked for here in the Valley. So we wanted to build that bridge. We called it our soft landing program because we saw that it's not happening without some kind of support and help from the VC community.
Yeah, Eddie's in the background going, "Yep, true, amen, amen." So true. So let me kind of go back. Go ahead, Lisa. You got something?
Yeah, sorry. I love what you said about potential, like the potential, that these founders have. I'm curious, how much emphasis do you place on the team behind the startup versus the idea itself?
So before doing a fund, I ran accelerators in emerging markets and combined me and my team and together with Daniel, we built over 42 accelerators. And one of the things I noticed is that the differentiator between success and failure is typically in the motivation of the founding team. So when we look at immigrant founders, we see that these people who come over here with their American dream, they're super motivated to achieve success. A lot of times they don't really have the backdrop or they don't really have an option to go back to their country and start all over. Secondly, most of the people that come over, especially with a talent visa, they are extremely smart. They already are the champions among the people from their country if they made it here with a talent visa. Eventually, I see that a lot of them have these, technical skills, programming skills. they have great math, science in the background, so they know very well how to build a product. So our job here with these programs and soft lending is kind of help them to build a business around their original product and allow them to kind of penetrate this market quicker and do it with a higher chance of success.
Lisa, great question. You also, Zamir, you also talked, you talked about the team. What is the most important thing for a founder to consider, a founding team, as they're approaching you? What do they really need to nail? If you can say, hey, start here, what is that number one thing?
So number one thing in my book would be hiring the best. So when we look at the founders, there's three things we believe that the founder should be capable of doing. Number one, hiring the best. So when you don't have a lot of money, when you have a great idea, how do you convince other talented people to join you? If you have that talent, that's number one. Number two is selling to the best. So once you got a good team, then you have to go out there and sell to to maybe the best companies out there or to your first early adopters. So if you can nail that down, then number three comes raising from the best. So to be successful in a VC backed startup world, you need to have some heavy hitters on your cap table. And if you can convince those investors to put money in you, then you're pretty much paving a road to success. So these are the three things we would look for.
So Lisa and I talk a lot about founder fit. And what I'm hearing is these are the criteria that demonstrates founder fit.
Yes. Of course, we would want them to have previous experience if they did businesses, even if those businesses failed. Actually, I love failure more than I love success because that gives them so much education throughout the way, practically failing a business before doing their second or third startup. But those three things that I mentioned are the core.
I love that. And Daniel, you're gonna chime in a minute because you've gone through a handful of startups where you have experience with that. But before we move on, let's jump right into now. We've talked a little bit about what makes a founder fundable. What now makes the business model or a pitch appear fundable so that they can start working towards due diligence? And we're going to dive into that in a minute. But what is that gap? You got a great team. You've demonstrated founder fit. Now you look at the business model. What are some things that are really important in order to demonstrate a fundable company?
So one of the expectations now, after the crazy 2021s when founders were raising just with a napkin, with high valuations, now a lot of investors started focusing on product market fit. When we mention product market fit, are there customers that are willing to pay any kind of money for this product? And typically, when we look at early stage, we see that if somebody is making at least $500,000 a year in revenue, that looks like an early product market fit. It means that there are people, there are customers that appreciate this product, even if it's an early stage product, but they're still willing to, bet their money on it. So that's an approval stamp for VC saying, okay, we understand the problem, but the solution that this team has created actually has some, reference in the market and people like it. They're willing to pay money for it.
So that's clearly demonstrating traction. Before you even get to traction, what are just really quick, what is one thing that a founder should be focusing on? And then we're going to look to Daniel because I know you got something on the tip of your tongue.
Yeah, so a lot of times before you can get to your first sales, it's basically evaluation. Right? Who is out there? What kind of experts, what kind of big companies or maybe accelerators evaluated you saying, yeah, whatever you're working on is interesting, is great. So, having a stamp over top accelerator or being an alumni of one is one point of evaluation. Having a corporate partner doing pilot with you is another stamp. Having a top tier advisory board or somebody who's really experienced in this segment advising you and putting their name on your pitch deck is another type of evaluation. So whatever kind of evaluation you can get from the market, from experts, from big companies, from accelerators, it's always good because that convinces the VC that there's something really happening with this company and we should pay attention to that.
Daniel, I'm going to look to you right now. You have something on the tip of your tongue you want to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, Look, this is a tricky thing looking at like things like ARR. Like I'm speaking, putting on my angel investor hat.
For our audience, will you tell them what ARR is?
Yeah, annual recurring revenue, or monthly recurring revenue, whichever metric you take on revenue. As Amir said, it's $500,000. Fine, sure, that shows something. But the question is, what is really, until you start digging into that, you don't know. Maybe they had a lump sum payment from one company that did something. That's literally one client, and maybe that was their like father-in-law that just wanted to finance the business that way. I'm taking an extreme example, but these things happen. Or maybe it was they paid for something that wasn't like the core essence of the product. So to me, actually, the indicator that's more important to me, money is a good indicator, no doubt, but is actually how many users are there on the product and how sticky is the product? I mean, are they in it 2 hours a day? Or if your target time is 5 minutes a day, for some apps it is, it's fine. If you have 1 million users, 5 minutes a day, that's still a lot. Then are they actually on it every day for 5 minutes? Like I think going like Duolingo, great example. That they literally programmed, gamified that whole thing in there that their users go in and do 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day. It's like clockwork. So getting to that point, I think to me is more important as an indicator than actually if they don't have revenue, fine, but if they get, engagement.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. So Daniel, you're an angel investor, Zamir VC. For our audience, let's kind of do a battle here. Is there a difference in the way that an angel looks at a potential investment as opposed to a VC? Zamir, I'll look to you first. Answer that.
I think, and I did some angel investment in early days, and the difference between an angel and a VC, angel invests their own money usually. VCs invest other people's money. That's number one difference. Number two is angels come in with smaller checks, and a lot of times the decision is made pure out of this, emotion, passion, or I like this idea. Let me throw in $100,000 in it and see what happens. Where the VCs, they have a pretty sophisticated process, and we can talk about the due diligence that we do in Vibranium.
Okay, so Daniel, I'm going to kick it over to you. What is your take on the question, VC or angel?
So I would actually riff on the passion side because I think it's all about passion. It's all about excitement. When I used to do coach new angel VCs that would go into this market, I would say, look, if you're in this to make money, just put some money into S&P 500. You'll probably if you're an early stage angel, not being supported by any syndicate, not having experience, you will do much better in the market than you would do in your investments. But you got to be really passionate about this one thing that you're doing, and because angels get involved hands-on. I've gotten involved in some of my startups where I'm an angel, literally as fractional CBDO, and I had to because that was the only way to make them succeed. So it was up to a VC doesn't have resources to do that. They won't.
So it's really a chess game, and at least I'll kick it to you. It's really a chess game. And depending on where you're at in the game, you're going to play a little bit different. Lisa, I know you have something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I have to ask this question because we have an angel investor, a VC, and then a communications expert here in front of me. So, I think when I think about what you said, Zamir, about founders needing to hire the best, sell to the best, raise from the best, it all comes down to storytelling. So what, in your opinions, makes a compelling narrative for a startup? Maybe angel versus VC?
So storytelling is important, definitely. And usually the way we interact with startups, we see their pitches, right? Either it's an event on a stage, or they come to us, they're trying to pitch. So it's always you gotta tell a really compelling story within 3 minutes or so. But storytelling and pitching is just the first step. It's very important that beyond that beautiful pitch deck, slides, and the story, you have some data backing this up. You have done really your homework in terms of who you're targeting, who you want to raise from, and you do have a substantial IP behind it. Because sometimes we see now with the age of AI, a lot of founders, they built a little shell for other people's AI tools, and then they try to sell it as their own startup, and this doesn't fly. When you do a little bit of technical due diligence, we can see right away that they don't own the IP, and eventually us as VCs, we want to have a piece of the company, piece of the equity, and if there's no IP inside of that, basically you buy nothing. So yeah, that's important.
Let's talk a little bit about now the due diligence process.
Yeah.
I mean, startups, companies are getting exposed through this. I mean, it can be a shiny window dressing in the pitch, as you're saying, and then you get into the data room and you start pulling back the curtain and you start seeing what the health of the company is. Zamir, start with some high-level definitions of what is due diligence for a company you're interested in.
So we as VCs or as general partners of funds are responsible in front of our LPs, limited partners, who we raise money from, to make sure that any deal we go into, we did a thorough due diligence, meaning that we know everything about this company as much as possible in this stage in order to make a data-driven decision. So it wouldn't be just Zamir liking something. It would be us, the whole team, our analyst, investment manager, a bunch of experts that we hire to look through the data room and talk to the founders. Everybody's opinion should agree that this is something interesting and we should go into it. Basically, due diligence is a process of de-risking the investment.
That is if you have resource, Zamir. That is if you have resource. If I'm an angel from a tiny fund, I don't have resource to do a super deep due diligence, especially for early stage. Where are you going to get the data? That's the key question. Where's that data coming from? Because you're limited to what, like 2 associates, 1 associate?
Yeah. So to kick it back, so Zamir, that's a great point. He's bringing the heat right now, Zamir. So what is a data? Is it a Google file? Is it a suite that you rent and you bring in the boxes? Is it what is that?
Well, I can reference to it as a Wild West now because everybody beyond the pitching, we've standardized the pitching, which is great because all of these accelerators, they teach you, and I know you, Brian, do in the course, with some top accelerators explaining founders how to put together the pitch. And it's pretty standard now. Now, everything beyond that is a black box. Every VC has their own process. Every startup prepares data room their own way. Most of them and seed stage don't even have a data room. So we're looking at random files sent to us through LinkedIn, through emails, and we kind of try to put everything together in a CRM. And this is a big problem that we're trying to tackle because every VC believes that their process is the best process. It's their secret sauce, which allows them to find these outliers and successfully invest. But in reality, I talked to more than 50 colleagues out there for the last year and a half. In reality, the first couple of stages of that process is very similar. We all look at the decks, we all go to the website, we all check the LinkedIn profiles, and we try to score, before even having an interview with the founder, we try to score all this information in our own way, but we pretty much come out with, similar conclusions.
Mm-hmm. And as you were saying, Daniel, not everybody has that resource, and you're working to solve this and to unify this. So jump in at this point, and what does an angel do when they don't have the resources, and then transition into what does this due diligence process look like for you?
They make a decision based on their heart and passion, and they mess up. That's what they usually do. That's what most angels do, if you talk about most angels. Now, sometimes angels band into syndicates to kind of cross-check and, maybe pool resources to have that 1 or 2 associates. So it's kind of like, a little association working together. But usually angels kind of follow their gut. They might look at a few documents. But they don't have even time to go in and do some proper research. Okay, what are some other funds that invested them? Did any... what were the backgrounds in LinkedIn? Where do I find these LinkedIn profiles? It's a lot of time. It's a lot of manual work. Here's the issue with this industry in general, I feel like most of it is still manual work because most of it is qualitative information. It's not like quant trading where you have historic data for 60 years and you could just unleash a machine on it. Well, now you can unleash machines onto qualitative data, which is why we can actually finally now, maybe for a year and a half, do this with venture industry. But no one has really done much yet. And
you two think you've cracked the code. And Zamir's smiling right now. Tell me what the big smile is, and then Daniel, I'll come back to you, because you're kind of the mastermind. Zamir, I'm assuming you came up with the idea, and then you no? Tell us how walk through it. First, Zamir. I'm all over the place.
So the idea was there, Daniel and the team, they come up with an idea of a platform, and Daniel will talk about it in a second. I came in as an expert who actually built the due diligence process from scratch by compiling the best methodologies, the best practices out there. We worked with a bunch of folks like from Stanford, from top VCs, etc. And the way we put the process together, we again, like any other VC, we believe it's the best process out there, right?
Yeah.
You got to win, yeah.
Well, and here's the thing: process is only as good as data that you have. That's what I would say. Because if they say if crap goes in, crap comes out.
Right.
And that's the limitation of any process. The question is, where do you get the data, and how can you get it, much faster, and how can you get a lot of data much faster? It's essentially any AI company is dealing, in essence, with that question as a core question, which allows it to function.
So to open up a little bit about this platform that we're building, basically, like I mentioned, the first couple steps of the process is very similar. And it takes a lot of manual labor and time to analyze information and pull information from open sources out there. Now,
or closed sources.
Or
you
closed
could API
sources.
it from Crunchbase, PitchBook, wherever.
So wait, I gotta insert a curious question. You're doing all of this research to due diligence on the company. Are companies not just being honest? Aren't they required? Like, what's
So yeah, this is a great question.
Yeah.
This is a great question. And one of the suggestions I always give to the founders is never lie to an investor, because it will come out at one point or the other, and it's going to ruin the relationship and maybe ruin your business. And as we saw in the news, some people go to jail for that. So we, try to advise everybody, be as transparent as possible. If you are a startup, we don't expect you to have everything perfect right away. We understand you're going to have gray zones, some loopholes. You're not going to be perfect. But if you are honest about it, we can then help you either find a right expert or, fix something really quickly. And if you are transparent, that builds trust. And trust is super important when we are dealing with VC startups.
So a good leader has to be a little vulnerable. They got to tell you what they don't know. And do you encounter a lot of startups come in thinking they need to know everything and not trusting that their VC partnership isn't going to provide?
Yeah, I mean, there is bias out there that, you have to come with a perfect pitch. Everything should be aligned, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the difference between the first-time founders and those who's already been, in the rodeo. Those who've been in the rodeo, they understand that if you are, like you mentioned, vulnerable, if you are honest, if you are saying, okay, these are my strong sides, but the reason why I'm raising is, for example, I need to hire such and such expert into my team in order to close this gap, then it makes a lot of sense to a VC.
That makes sense. Daniel, what are your thoughts in terms of fixing this with the AI process? So we're going to pivot back to that. Do you think that the system that you're putting together is going to help with that?
So it's obviously we're not the only ones playing into that space. There's maybe 2-3 dozen companies that are trying to do something around this. And as I said, it goes back to qualitative information now that we can process it with machines in bulk. So if you think about it, we used to do this all manually. We used to go and research the company. Okay, what is their market? Are they really accurate about their market? Okay, I got their deck. Make sense of the deck in 1 minute, structured for me. Now go check if the market size is actually what they're saying, or it's, they missed it. Maybe not intentionally. Maybe they just miscalculated. What is their competitor list? Is it accurate? But I used to spend, God knows how much time on this. Now it takes me like a minute. Okay, now I got the competitor list. I can go look at the competitors. So then I can start doing more complex things where if you have the data in one place to collaborate on, and then, a startup can say, hey, I finally own my data. It's not Zamir VC. It's not someone else VC. They have their own version. We all have it in a central place. I can share this much with this VC, this much with that VC, and then I can have open source, or like I can have an open piece of the profile for anyone else to see. So it's kind of like your LinkedIn profile, if you think about it. Like you got your LinkedIn, you can share your professional accomplishments with someone. Or GitHub, where you could share, basically, you use it for coding, right? Before that, everyone was having their own piece of code. They're doing, and sharing it individually. Now we got the central thing around which everyone collaborates, big corporations too. So that that's what could change the industry, I think.
So I'm hearing it could change actually a lot. But before we get to what it all changes, because I'm actually thinking, what are VCs gonna be needed for in the future if you have this due diligence process? Are you putting yourself out of a role?
Well, you see, VC investment is still a people's business, right? We're not trying to eliminate VCs. There's still got to be conversations. There's still got to be these, building the relationships between the investor and the founder. So AI cannot do that for us. But AI can take care of a lot of the manual labor that we have to do. And instead of wasting time and looking at 100 startups in order to invest into one, I would rather spend more time with 10 startups that really fit the profile, that really align with my investment strategy, and I would be a good fit for them, because this is a two-way street. And so it will solve a problem not just for the VCs, it should be solving also for the founders, for them to really understand which VCs they need to talk to and go after. And again, it would allow a lot more time between me and the 10 companies in order to invest into one or two, rather than looking at 100.
So it's is now and always will be a relationship game.
Well, I think for the coming near future, 5-10 years for sure, it's still about building these relationships and getting to know the founder, especially when it comes to early stage. Because as we said, there's not that many data points in a seed round. We rather, we like the founder, we like their passion, we like, what kind of product they're building and problem solving, and we go along really supporting them in that journey. Like, we are a hands-on investor.
So what, Lisa, then I'll look for you. I'm gonna ask one more question, and Lisa, you take the next one. I know I'm dominating once again. How do you segment now the due diligence process? I'm sure it's just, you give yourself some time, you pull in the information, but is it segmented? And what is that first thing that you're looking at in terms of a healthy company? Give me maybe one or two things that demonstrate a healthy company. And then what are the things that are really like no-goes? I mean, you obviously said the lying and leaving things out, and there's smoke screens or whatever. But what are some things that we just can't move forward on this anymore?
Well, usually founders would hear a lot of times, come back a little later when you have a little more traction. So each VC would have a certain threshold. For us, it would be $500,000 in annual recurring revenue. If a founder, even with a great idea, with a great product, but they have a lot less, so if they're close to 500, we would look at it. But if they have only, let's say, $100,000 in revenues, we would say, we like you, this is interesting, but please come back when you have a little more traction, more customers, and we could look at some kind of historic data, because we are a data-driven VC, so we want to look at least a year worth of sales data. And the reason why we want to do that is we want to see the speed of growth. That's super important when it comes to a venture-backed startup. If you're building a business that is growing, 20-30% a year, that's not good enough. VCs are looking for businesses that are growing 10, 15, 20%, maybe even more a month. And that's an indicator that there's something there, and this could be very scalable, potentially 100x on the investment in early stage.
I like that. Lisa, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I think I'm still stuck on some of the seed founders that come to you don't have a data room. I'm pretty surprised by that. It's interesting how critical these data rooms are, and how founders aren't still aware of that, right, at that stage. I think as I've been a founder of a couple of companies, and that's so exciting. I think one, to have a tool that could potentially take down that overwhelming feeling, right, of which VC do we start with, in what industry, which ones would actually be interested in our type of product, and then also what would they specifically be looking for, some kind of tool to guide you through that process. That's just exciting, and I can't wait to share that with our founders network.
Yeah. Well, they're still working on it. Dan, you're still working on this, right? I mean, how soon before this can come out and we can get this to
that was my question.
We already have about 30 VCs testing that, and some founders and some corporates. The new version, based on this testing, is probably going to be sometime in June, so it's not too far off.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to release it to open market. It's going to be probably a closed MVP, not beta, but MVP. But
Your secret sauce now, right? That's what
yeah, well,
I see
mean,
what's happening here. I can honestly keep you close.
It's about listening to the customer. There's no secret sauce. The only secret sauce actually understanding your customer, and I think this is where I follow the kind of what Ivan Zhao has so eloquently put, is you have to be obsessed with them. And I wouldn't release anything out there that, at least 50 to 100 customers haven't touched before and given me feedback. Okay, I know what you're thinking at least now.
Right. So that kind of goes back to the point Zamir was making earlier about it's going to be now about relationships. It's going to be about mindset. And you're focusing on that moving forward in terms of educating founders on how to have the effective mindset.
Right.
What are some insights aside from the data that are still necessary for investors to have as well as founders to have?
So it's interesting that Zamir brought up immigrant founders, right? And being an immigrant myself, a multiple immigrant, because I immigrated, a few times throughout my life, actually 5 to be exact, to different countries, and then back to US, etc. But I think there is some inherent traits that are super, well, they wouldn't guarantee you success, but they would increase the odds. And they're present in immigrants just because of what they have to go through. And some of these are like things like anti-fragility. So you get...
Wait, say that again for...
Anti-fragility. So it's a concept that the author of Black Swan, that he came out with this book and concept, anti-fragility. So fragility is if I throw a glass on the floor, it breaks. It's fragile. If I throw a bottle, it's not going to break. It's resilient. Anti-fragile, if I throw it on the floor and it becomes stronger as a result of me throwing it on the floor, that is anti-fragile. And you have to do that as someone coming into a new situation or a new country, because otherwise you just die, or you stop progressing. You don't make it, because you have to become stronger through adversity. So that's anti-fragility, and that's critical. Second one's grit. Just don't stop. Like just and grit, by the way, is not only about persistence. It's about staying on target. So we had some questions around, okay, what is that quality that you look for in the founder when you don't have much other data? I look for grit. Actually, one of the questions I ask, tell me about your teenage years. What did you succeed in? Were you a great swimmer? Did you win a chess tournament? What did you? That shows that kind of will to continue plowing through and staying on target, like the Luke Skywalker, stay on target. Oh my God, they're behind me! I can stay on target. So it's that. It's literally those are some of the key things. But the issue is in today's world, the speed of change is so high that it's the people with such mindset that I think that will win. Not just people that are building businesses, but in general, I think it's very useful to start incorporating that mindset into how people think and operate.
Give us one more. So you talked about anti-fragility, you talked about grit, and what would be one more?
I can go with one more.
Do it. All right, chime in on this.
I think adaptation. You see, we, humans as a species survived because we could adapt to, whatever is happening, new weather, new scenarios. So people who are entrepreneurial in mindset, they're quick to adapt and, create something in that new environment. That's what we see right now with a lot of startup founders. They see that there's a wave of AI coming and they, go that way, they shift that way, they start building new products with new ideas, solving new problems. And I think that's a part of success, being able to adapt. It doesn't mean you defocus or you kind of swing all the time, no. But because this world, things that happened for the past few years, like COVID and a couple large wars out there, they change things for many millions of people. And if you don't have this mindset that you need to quickly adapt and then keep on moving, then you're probably not going to develop.
But part of adaptation or flexibility, mental flexibility, is decoupling from the framework in which you were brought into. All of us were brought into a framework. And I say you are brought into a framework. That's a given. You don't have to be brought into a framework.
So so what I'm hearing with you, both your perspective is, one, there's this ability to let go of the old, lean into the new.
Yes.
And whether you're doing a startup, doing a new role.
Just living.
Yeah, living or coming across the world to live here. There's going to be culture shock. There's going to be the feeling of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't believe you. But you let go, you lean in. There's this element of being vulnerable to the fire and allowing it to refine you.
Coming out as a phoenix out of the fire. Being reborn every single time.
Oh, this is good. This is good stuff. All right, so we're getting close to the 40-minute mark. Daniel, before we have you move into Eddie's chair, what are a couple takeaways in terms of your path? How can we connect with you, and where can we see you going in the next 18 months?
So, and it actually all the road leads to the same point. My path is to empower entrepreneurs, is to an ecosystem that helps entrepreneurs grow, which is corporate and VCs. And the tool that we're building with the team now is basically, Innovera tool, is basically there to do that. It's to create kind of a more even playing ground, but also, like Lisa said, give some structure, give a lot of comfort to all the players in the market. And hopefully that ends up being some kind of a GitHub. We'll see. It's always, you never know. But the second part is hopefully get a lot of young people in colleges and educational institutions to start actually incorporating the mindset. Because hard skills, Yunsun Huang said, hey, if you were spent just a fortune on coding education, you might be just out of work in a few years. So what's going to keep you in work? Well, it's things we just talked about, I think.
Keep you in work, and that's the mindset. That's the adaptability. That's the grit.
That's the anti-fragility. Because you're going to get broken through these changes, but you just rise back up again stronger.
So before we let you go, now I'm geeking out on this stuff.
Yeah.
When you're doing due diligence, do you unpack that? Like, do you ask your founders? Do you have a story?
As an angel, that's exactly what I unpack, because I'm investing in early stage startups.
During my 2-hour interview with founders, when they get to stage of a GP interview, I asked them about 15 different questions in terms of their background, their team, how they found each other, what motivates them, et cetera, et cetera. So the team component and their background component is a very big piece of that due diligence process.
And that's the hook for bringing you guys back, talking about that deep insight into what is required for a founder, what's required for a successful team. We're going to pause for station identification, but before we do so, Daniel, you're going to sit in Eddie's chair, where you're still going to be here asking questions, but we're going to bring in Eddie now and see what they're doing over at Podspace. So we're going to pause now. Brian, let's go to the pause. All right, we're back again. Joining us now in the hot seat is Eddie. Daniel is still in the building. And so I want to acknowledge also James is in the building. Of course, they've got the Instagram.
Wave
happening.
James to the camera over here.
Yeah.
There you are.
Wave it around. Get into it.
There you go.
All right, Eddie, thanks for joining us. You flew all the way out from Paris. I like to say that we're now attracting people from all over the world.
That's true.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Let our audience know a little bit about yourself.
Thanks. First of all, thank you for receiving us from Paris. It's still a very long way. So my name is Eddie Keloufi. I'm the founder of Podspace. It's a company who focuses on exactly what we are doing right now. So it's a SaaS company who help people create content faster and easier. So it's a marketplace that's refer places to create content. It could be all kind of content, podcast. It could be a YouTube video, so many kinds. So we open, starting with the first location in Paris. It was not even a real idea at the beginning. It went very fast. So we opened the first location in Paris, then the second. Then it went extremely fast. So we opened in Spain and now Switzerland. And because we have a lot of ambition and we believe in our solution, we just why not trying this American dreams that everyone is saying. And it was very interesting what you said just before, because when you come here, you're a lot more stimulated, You are this kind of immigration where you want to, just be part of the game, like a Silicon Valley game. So that's why
Yeah. So what Zamir was saying earlier really resonated with you, and how immigrating here, you're going to need those resources really quick. But I find it fascinating. So Lisa, I met Eddie at Startup Grind, and he said his mind was blown that he just steps off the plane. And what did you say to me about how things...
So different, everything is going so fast, compared to France. You said it before, but it's very true. Even American, the way they speak, they have this attitude, they always want to, just have a meeting today after day. So quick, it's insane. But yeah, it's
You say that's Americans, but I think that's mostly just here.
Silicon
I think
Valley.
everybody here
maybe
in Silicon
Silicon Valley,
Valley is a
for
little
sure,
amped up.
Yeah, I remember he ran his hands through his hair. He goes, "I just got off the plane. Now I'm on a radio show. Things happening so fast here."
That's so true. We were jet lagged, man. We were jet lagged. We just arrived. We were very eager to do something. Like it was maybe 3-4 hours before we just arrived. So let's do something. So I met Brian and say, "Hey, we spoke. I told him what we do." And he said, "Would you like to come on the show?" I said, "Oh my God, that's crazy, man."
It's awesome. I love it.
And Brian was probably a little jealous you were running your hands through your luscious hair as well.
Yeah, I gave him a little stink eye. Like, yeah, what do you think? He was a flex. Yeah.
Plus, he's got the cool accent
for the
and the cool,
audience.
right? He's
Yeah.
got the cool
Yeah.
clothes and the cool accent. Brian's just green right now with envy.
Yeah, I want to be around the cool kid. Yeah, I want to be around the cool guys. Yeah, I surround myself with cool people. Look at the room full here. All right, so tell us a little bit about this isn't your first company.
Yeah, it's not my first one. It's my second one. Just to say something, I believe we're not startuper. We are very entrepreneur people, James and I, because we bootstrapped the company. The former company that I did was a company named Independent.com that did like 15 million in terms of revenue. So we invested everything in Podspace. So it's how it went fast. The first idea was like to find a place where we can create content for our training and for James, which is a huge influencer in France, like with a huge audience of more than 1 million followers. And we were like, why not doing something like that can help people create more content, focus on the content part, not just the camera and all this stuff, you know? And it went that everyone liked the idea, and it's how we built it and developed it as a bootstrap company still now.
So you're completely bootstrapped at this point. So okay, so what was Brian? You got a question? I
heard you say that you've got locations in different countries now, and you grew very fast. But are those brick and mortar locations like what we've got here? Like, is it a studio that you're opening where people can come to create content?
Yeah, through the marketplace, exactly. So they book it through the marketplace in Europe, and we had luck to have been named in Forbes 2 weeks ago on 30 under 30 in Europe. So it allowed us to show some visibility in the content space. You know, Goldman Sachs said that the content creation industry is like a 250 billion industry valuation. And we really wanted to show that going faster is the future of content creation, and not everyone have something to say. It's our belief. And sometimes you hear people saying stories, but they don't have anything to say. And we just wanted to give a easier opportunity to speak and share the story.
So I'm gonna kind of put your feet to the fire now a little bit. You know, I got my big guns in the room right now. I got Daniel and Zamir. So I'm gonna have Zamir ask you a few questions, because Zamir is one of those VCs that loves media. He's got a media background, talks a lot about sales, so he knows how to build relationships. Zamir, what are you hearing about Eddie and Podspace that is attractive to you in terms of this creator space?
So it's true, you know, what Eddie said about the content creation, right? And one of the verticals that we invest in because of the AI and generative AI is the content creation part. The question is whether the business is solely software business or they have these offline locations. Because, you know, whenever we talk about the VC space, we always want to see a fast scaling. And whether, you know, this location is just like a lab that allows more visibility and more media coverage for what they're doing, like in Forbes magazine does, it might be, you know, good, or this is an essential part of their business model, which might eventually become the slowdown effect. You know, because again,
True.
you know, if you need to open a physical location in every country, you got to extend the team somehow, you got to partner with people, etc. So that would be my question to you in terms of your business model. Tell me a little more on your go-to-market strategy.
That's a very good question, because we thought about it from the beginning. So we opened it first like in Paris location, that's our HQ that we own. But the other locations, so we had a lot of demand, right? A lot of copycats we had in France. So some people asked us to do the same thing. So what we did is like we were focused more on the software part, right? Because it's more scalable, and we take a percentage of royalties percentage out of them, right? So we don't own the other place. We own the one of Paris, of course, but the other place we just have a royalties, and we focus on the software part, because we really wanted to not only like allow them to go faster on having a location, but also an app where when they have their content after 48 hours, they can spread it to all platforms at the same times. And so we are more focused on the tech part, yeah.
Daniel, if you got a question, I can relay it back into the mic. So if you want to pipe up at any time, you go ahead. But did you have a follow-up with that, Zamir?
Well, yeah, the second question would be in terms of your strategy, right? Which countries or which locations or which segments of audience do you believe are your low-hanging fruit right now? Who are you targeting?
Most of our retainer at the moment are companies. So we have a 60% of retention rate with companies. So I would say our aiming is more companies because everyone needs content. Of course, we have a lot of content creator, but we have, for example, politics. We even received the French president in the studio in Paris. So the companies need to educate, and podcast or speaking, is a good way of education, So it's allowing people to explain more what they do. For example, in fintech too, we receive we're turning a podcast for a company named Shares. So it's a fintech company who allow people to go faster on investment through social.
So I'm gonna kick it over to Daniel in a second. Before I kick it over to you, Daniel, what I'm hearing is, I mean, in the States, I'm hearing these stories that big companies are building authority internally. They're bringing in influencers in order to pump out more content to educate, but they're doing it internally. Are you saying that you partner with those companies in order for those big corporate?
This company don't do it internally. They come and actually ask us to do it for them because they don't have the expertise sometimes.
Got it.
So
okay, Daniel, I seen you had something on the tip of your tongue. What was your question?
Yeah, obviously, with AI revolution, one of the biggest questions I'm sure you have with content.
So Daniel's asking right now about the AI revolution. Go ahead, I'll relay.
How do you make AI your ally versus your foe? Because if in the past I needed a studio or a place to do dubbing, and it was a complex process.
Yeah, that's true.
Cost me $20,000. Now I do it in under an hour with Rask.
Okay, I got to repeat all that. So, Eddie, I'll let you repeat what you just heard from Daniel. He was asking about, I heard, how do you make AI your ally as opposed to your foe? How would you answer that question?
That's a very good question because we use AI. We use it like every day in our process, actually, So basically, when we have a content, we use, like, for example, tools like Autopod, who basically cut all the video and edit it very fastly. So it's our ally because it helps us to go faster on the content and deliver them, as we say, a high quality content and fast to all platforms at the same time through the application. So, all right.
So I have this question for you, Eddie. It seems like a very interesting idea, and you get a lot of visibility and growth. How long do you plan to bootstrap this company, and when do you intend to go out for external fundraising?
We just starting thinking about it, to be honest, because we believe like US market is the real game, the Shark Tank game, as they say here. So, yeah, we were thinking about it because obviously the timing could be good, and
but just as a disclaimer, they are not fundraising right now, nor soliciting anyone here. However, the question is asked by a VC for himself.
Yeah, and the reason why I ask this question is because it's super important in terms of time to market. Typically, and there was a research done by one of the consulting groups saying that the bootstrap companies, they're losing 2x in speed of development comparing to venture-backed companies. So whenever you're doing something amazing, and I think you already have somebody stepping on your, on your toes and following you, copycatting you, if those startups raise venture money faster and then they start, spending all of that in terms of their marketing, they might outperform or outrun you guys. So that's was true. The question.
So my question then be, what is your secret sauce? What is your mode? What is your differentiator? And for those who are listening and don't know what I just said, what makes you stand out and compared to your
French touch?
Yeah, the French, the jacket and the shoes is really cool.
No, I'm just kidding. The differentiation, it's I will say the tools that we use, like the software we developed. We are very passionate about what we do, and I think we really know the market. As few people know it in terms of content creation, because most of people who receive are very very famous people because they know the market. We really know how it works, and we really believe, even though it's true, it can go faster when you bring a lot of money on it. we think you need like to understand the market, and it's not just only about money, you know. So
Zamir, I got a question. Is that enough? I mean, I'm sure the differentiator is there, and you'd unpack it a little more. But is relationships and passion and reputation enough?
Knowing the market is important, but I don't think it's enough because, you know, success is a multifactorial thing. I mean, you have so many things to be aligned in order to be successful, and especially when it comes to like, you know, venture type of companies. So definitely if we would do a due diligence on Eddie and his company, we would be asking probably close to 300 different questions.
So Eddie, how would you go a little bit deeper into your differentiator?
200%. I think it's a very good question. Very good question. And this is the most important question that someone have to ask, is how you can not like, have the market, you know, when you want to invest on something, you want that's the biggest fish is the one that's going the having the market. So I believe the differentiation is like, as I said, like the software, the tool we're developing with AI, because we're developing tools with AI, for example, allowing people to edit on the same app the content, and the branding, of course. Branding is very important. You become a brand like Airbnb did, for example. They have a big brand, so or other huge company. I'm not comparing to Airbnb. I'm just saying like branding is very important because everyone recognizes you as the leader in the market.
I like that.
Right. Something I'm curious about, Eddie, is for our audience, what is something that you took away from your first startup in terms of, you know, lessons learned that you applied to your second?
Don't rush on the decision. I think sometimes people don't understand it, but I think, in my opinion, as a young entrepreneur, I think sometimes you rush on the decision because you think there is a good opportunity, you know. But sometimes you need to take time, and you will win it in the long-term run and not on the short term. So this is my biggest lesson I've learned from the previous one.
That's a great question, because what I'm thinking about when you say that is a lot of, and Zamir, chime in if you see this, is startups get into survival mode, and they press and they press and they don't play a longer game, and they talk about runway. You're smiling, so respond.
Well, I mean, there is a comparison to a marathon, right? So building a startup is a marathon. It's not a sprint. But you have to make sure, you know, you stretch your resources wisely, and you have enough runway, you know, to do all the experimenting. Sometimes I see founders spreading themselves really thin, going into 10 different directions, you know, and really losing and wasting the resources that they have. So yeah, I would agree with, you know, making smart decisions is important, but at the same time, moving fast enough is also important.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, I'm going to jump in here. We got about 1 minute left. I want to make sure we have time to know where to contact Eddie.
Yeah, Eddie, so go ahead. How can we connect with you? How can our listeners get to know you a little bit better?
Yes, thank you for the shootout. So you can contact us through Instagram. Eddie Calais for My Podspace is the name of the company.
Slow it down just a little bit. Say it again.
Yeah.
My Podspace, MY pod like podcast and space like spaces.
Yep.
And LinkedIn, Eddie Keloufi, like maybe if there's, I don't know.
It will be in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, Brian, if anybody has questions, where do they get a hold of you in case they just want to go through you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, Brian Sparks, or Brian at Silicon Valley Impact. I will, you know, filter all those questions that they may have about Eddie, Daniel, and Zamir. Daniel, thank you for being here today. Eddie, thank you. Zamir, any parting words, buddy?
Well, you know, just like we said today, you have to focus on what you want to build, right? There's so much noise out there. You know, try to align your goals, and money is only the means. Like for me, you know, freedom is the essential goal.
It really is. And I think I heard a little implant there for be a good communicator.
That's
Lisa,
it for
thank
today.
you. Lisa, thank you. Brian, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. This is Silicon Valley Impact. Join us every Tuesday at 3 p.m. here on KPCR 92.9 FM. You guys are great. Thanks.